This is the Fifth Estate winning headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. But we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 28th of July, 2020, and I am 2J.
I am JM.
And I am GK, and in case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, Raila to the rescue as Uhuru reins in troops. In the Standard, the epic failure. And in the Star, revenue tussle, Raila and Uhuru seal formula deal.
Yes.
So all the headlines today are speaking about the CRA, the third formula deal that is on the table. And I think Senate is debating on it today.
Yes.
So we gave a bit of background yesterday, but I think 2M, you should tell us what has changed. What is in the last one? 2J, sorry.
Oh boy.
I'm sorry.
It's all right, forgiven.
Guess who I missed? Tell us what is in the was in the previous formula and what is in the
exactly. I think that we should take people to class, because I think right now as we talk about this formula, we're not really understanding what exactly we're being sold. So currently, what the current CRA formula has is as follows. Population accounts for 45%, equal share for 25%, poverty for 20%, land area for 8%, and fiscal responsibility for 2%.
Yeah.
So that's how they measure what each county will receive as part of their revenue allocation. So the current proposal wants to add on one more factor to this equation. So population would remain at 45, equal share would increase to 26%, poverty would reduce to 18%, land area 8%, fiscal responsibility 2%, and the new factor is called the development factor, which would account for 1%. So I think that kind of will give you a broad idea of what's happening.
So both have been population driven. I think that's been the misconception. But right now we had a census, right? We had a census this year. And so those numbers have changed. And I think the argument that was being made yesterday was, how does the per capita spend in Lamu be more than the one in Nairobi? And so there's an argument there that the more populous counties are the ones to sort of benefit from the third formula.
Yes.
But I think they will, but I think it makes sense. I think I'm all for the one man, one shilling idea. But the thing is, for all counties, whether you're populous or not, I think for me it's fiscal responsibility. Are you able to absorb and spend the money that you get in a responsible way? I think that's what it comes down to.
I think devolution shocked a lot of counties when they learned that they had to do audits.
They
didn't have the capacity.
Some didn't even know how to do them.
Politically, Raila seems to have been browbeaten into supporting this. Apparently, and it's reported in the Star that the president reached out to him personally, as well as Kalonzo, to support the revenue sharing formula currently on the table. And it makes good political sense. I think he was holding back because some of the counties that will lose out are some of the counties that he historically have supported him, in the coast and the Somalis, for example. But if he hopes to be president in 2022, he has to woo the Gema nation. And if you've got the Gema nation, then he doesn't need all these other minor tribes. That's a fact of life. That's what Tomboy said. Two big nations and one small one to top up. And you're in office. 50% plus one. Bam. And I think that's the reality.
That's facing Raila. Faced Raila, So Senator Moses Kajwang came out and said, actually, there's no crisis. So the Standard has said this is an epic failure, but not quite yet.
Not so true.
Basically, according to Article 217, Section 7 of the Constitution, they can continue to use the current formula until they come to some sort of agreement about the next one. So there's no crisis as such. And there's Malala, Kakamega Senator, who said he will move to the House to amend the CRA recommendation to say that it should start 2 years from now. That it should be postponed till we come to some agreement. So that's where we are.
Pretty much.
All three headlines. So we have the epic failure, we have revenue tussle, and we have
Raila to the rescue as Uhuru reins in troops.
Is Raila rescuing Uhuru? Is that the?
I don't think so. I think he was whipped, in line.
We have a 3-part criteria that we will use to break down the headlines. We'll ask ourselves: is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? Is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? All topical, because they're all discussing the CRA. Whether it's an epic failure, for me, no.
I do not agree.
Yet.
It's not an epic failure.
So we can toss the standard.
Yes.
I say we give it to the Star because I think Raila and Uhuru, that's all that was needed in terms of sealing
the deal.
Yeah,
the deal.
Yes.
Let's hope that the Senate plays ball.
Yeah, I agree.
Give it to the
With
Star.
the Star.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There you go. The Star gives us our winning headline. On to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a 3-part criteria. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective or just plain lazy?
Yes.
Who should we begin with? Let's start with the Standard.
In the Standard, we have a cartoon of COVID being surrounded by different people holding different weapons, including pistols, machine guns, and stones, but also being surrounded by different symbols of religion and even some media microphones. Gado, what are you telling us here? I think he's suggesting that we've tried all ways of, defeating corona.
Yeah.
Our neighbors next door have resorted to a deep and intense prayer.
Yeah.
Others, I guess,
To the garden.
Yeah, to the gun. I suppose that's what he's saying. Are we stoning people and shooting them for? Yeah.
A little pessimistic.
Very pessimistic.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's entirely accurate.
And I don't quite know what it's saying. What is it really communicating?
Gado, please
We're
tell
trying
us.
to
I
shoot
don't
corona.
know. Has corona become the center of attention?
I don't know.
Toss it. Just toss it.
Toss
Yeah.
it once.
So in the
and
Daily
for all.
Nation, we have a relay race. And in the relay race, we have one caricature of Sonko. And he's running towards Buddy, but he's come to a screeching halt. And you can see his coach there, caricature Uhuru Kenyatta, sort of trying to force his hand to pass the baton to General Buddy of the Nairobi Metropolitan. And he's refusing, but Buddy's there with his hand outstretched, waiting. And Sonko is saying, I was not sober. I'm withdrawing from this deal. So this is also coming from yesterday's commentary that we gave. What to State House? I don't know what they did. While he confused Sonko, and he says that he wasn't in the right frame of mind.
Yeah,
So
but I think also going back to 2M's point yesterday was that look at what the NMS has done in just 100 days. And I think they've even made further, more quite interesting promises of other things that they're going to do. So if anything, I see this as passing the baton on to the better athlete.
No,
Absolutely.
Democratically, I'm not for it. He won this city fair and square.
And what we've experienced is democratic fatigue syndrome. We talked about this a few weeks ago. Where politicians constantly let you down to a point where you're just totally fatigued with that system.
Yeah.
And so Nairobi right now is breathing fresh.
A sigh of relief.
Sigh
But
of
they have 2 years and then they vote Sonko out. They can just wait.
Guys,
Absolutely.
go to the CBD and see what is being done by the NMS.
It's amazing.
Right?
It's
Okay,
amazing.
so we park Daily Nation. Let's move to the Star.
So in the Star, we have a cartoon here, a caricature of Raila Odinga, who has been conspicuously missing in action, by the way, for the last few weeks. He's dressed in a robe and some bath slippers, drinking an orange drink from a cocktail glass, calculating the revenue sharing formula. And he says, and I quote, simple, you need to find the value of R. And that's in the context of the revenue sharing formula, which is soon going to be passed by the Senate.
And even on the robe, it has the R, right? I think this is also in the context that Raila came out in the last minute to give a vague but also direction-full
statement on this
statement. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, you could take from it what you wanted, and I think that's the beauty of Raila's statement.
Yeah,
if you are for it, you got it. If you are against it, you also saw something for yourself. But the value of R could be the value of himself. Saying like it's me who's gonna tie break this whole decision. I really love the idea of Baba Man in slippers, so I wanted to get my
You're winning.
my winning cartoon.
Speaking of the statement, politician is the kind of person who can speak for 20 minutes and say absolutely nothing.
That's true.
It's brilliant. And Baba is good at that.
He's good at that. Can we give Ozone our winning cartoon?
Yeah, I mean, I hate Ozone's puns, but this one, it got me. I love it.
The value of R. There you have it. Ozone gives us our winning cartoon. And now for our final thought, but before we get there, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And now our final thought. Today is inspired by a TED Talk entitled Change Your Channel, presented by Malence Bart Williams at the TEDx Berlin Salon in 2015. So Malence Bart Williams was born in Cologne, Germany. She is a her father is from Sierra Leone and her mother is from Germany. And she pursued her studies in economics and finance in Paris, Singapore, and Great Britain. Very diverse.
Well read.
And so she says in this TED Talk that because of her German Sierra Leone heritage, she perceives herself as this bridge connecting two vastly different worlds. And so she starts off her TED Talk, and I'll quote, she says, "Good morning, I am Melence. I come from the richest country in the world, located on the richest continent in the world." And of course, she's not talking about Germany. She's talking about Sierra Leone, located in Africa.
Fantastic.
And so she walks you through the riches of Sierra Leone. She talks about how mining in Sierra Leone has been one of the key factors for instability in the country and one of the reasons for the country's long-running civil war. She says that besides golds and diamonds, they have about 20% of the world's precious minerals that have been discovered on the country as of today. They recently started to extract huge amounts of petroleum. They have diamonds, they have botics, they have gold, iron, all these things. And in fact, the country has the third largest reserves of iron ore in the world. And tantalite, also known as coltan, which powers all of our mobile phones and computers. And so she goes on to say, of course, the West needs Africa's resources very desperately to power their airplanes, their cell phones, their computers, their engines. And the gold and diamonds then go on to power their status, to determine their decor in their homes and the value of their currencies. And she says it's quite evident that the aid is not in fact coming from the West to Africa, but from Africa to the Western world. The Western world depends on Africa in every possible way, since alternative resources are very scarce out there. And she says that this perception that a healthy and strong Africa, cannot happen, she said that's actually the opposite. Because if we were to disperse our resources freely and cheaply, we would do it at world market rates. But right now we're being held back by a lot of the way the West interacts with us. And she goes on to give this example of the French, which I think we've given on the table before. The French Treasury, for example, is receiving about $500 billion every year in foreign currency exchange reserves from African countries that is based on colonial debt. So as the French left their French colonial Africa, they said, you now have to pay us debt for what we have done for you. And you will therefore continue to pay us year after year.
What a bad breakup.
Madness. And so she says, moreover, French former President Jacques Chirac stated in an interview, "We have to be honest and acknowledge that a large part of the money in our banks comes precisely from the exploitation of the African continent." He stated that without Africa, France would slide down to the rank of a third world power. And so these are some of the things that she outlines. And I think it goes back to that title, Change Your Channel. She was really giving this Western audience a completely different perspective of how they viewed Africa for many, many years. Very interesting talk.
I really enjoyed her TED Talk. I also noted that she lowered her voice to bring in the audience and keep them captivated. And I think that strategy works. I'll do two things. I'll talk about her style as well as her content. So first, let me offer a review of her style using one of the observations from the book, Carmen Gallo, Talk Like TED, that we're using this week. And here, what I saw the speaker do is persuade the audience by using the 3-point framework of the ethos, the logos, and the pathos. Ethos is about credibility. And what the author tells us in the book is that we tend to agree with people whom we respect for their achievements, title, and experience. And she brings that to the table. She makes it apparent what her background is towards the end. And so she earns credibility on that front. Logos is the means of persuasion through logic, data, and statistics. And she did that through storytelling and telling us she's from the richest continent in what the minerals that we produce contribute to in the world. And then pathos is the act of appealing to emotions. The way that she told the stories of the young men from Sierra Leone and the way that their lives were transformed from crime to finding purpose, that was quite convincing. And so for me, that was a brilliant execution of the whole TED Talk. She had me captivated for the entire session. But number two, I want to offer a critique to her thesis that Africa lags behind economically because of the systematic destabilization by our former colonies. In my view, that's a tired argument. If we are poor and exploited more than half a century after independence, it is because we have not snapped out of the condition of mental slavery. I want to preach a bit and give you the biblical perspective.
We haven't had the organs in a while.
Yeah,
there we go.
Cue them. This is the time. Absolutely. So first, regarding oppression and mental slavery. Oppression began during the colonial era. when the individual's self-worth and sense of self was destroyed. This is what happened to us as Africans. Oppression cancelled our feeling of self-determination, and it has since then suffocated our personal potential. And by the way, living in slavery is easier than living in freedom, and that's why I say we're still in mental slavery. In the condition of slavery, the colonizer fought for us, he thought and planned for us, he provided for us, he created a culture of dependency, which we haven't snapped out of. So as we attained freedom in 1963, for example, as Kenya, and for African countries in the 1960s, we attained political freedom, yes, but not really economic freedom. Our economies are very much dependent on those of the West. We attained physical freedom, but our minds were still shackled in that mentality of when we lived in slavery. So freedom is first a mental condition before it is a physical statement. I think we need to recognize that. And what our leaders need to do is to help us bridge from being so dependent economically to being independent. And second, finally, regarding management. The universal law regarding management is this: poor management attracts poverty and good management produces wealth. That's the parable of the talents. You know, if you're not good at managing something, it will be taken away from you. And it's not even a biblical principle. You know, I'm sure you see drug dealers do really well. It's very simple. They're just very good managers. You know, they're just very good managers. And if you're a good manager, people will throw money at you. If you're a poor manager, then people will rob you. And that's sadly what the reality of the African continent is. We're poor managers of our resources. And this is why we are perpetually taken advantage of by the West. So what we need to do is be a little bolder in terms of walking away from some of the economic orthodoxies and then craft a new future for our African economies that are independent of the international capitalist system. We've seen China do that, South Korea, and so on and so forth. It is possible.
I think you need to give this sermon to the senators as they debate on the CRA, right? I think especially that part on management.
Very key. So I'll be honest, I had to watch this TED Talk twice. It wasn't one of my favorites, but it gave me food for thought. And what really helped is one of the rules, as the book mentions, which is she uses pictures and videos. And I think that multi-sensory experience is, I think, for me, what got it. You know, I was like, okay, maybe I can watch this again. So she gets the young men to articulate just how their lives have changed by not being given charity, but being given the opportunity to sort of determine for themselves what it is they wanted to do with their lives. And so, you know, there's even a young man who prays and says that this is the story of my life, and it was really moving. And so she uses two mental representations of an explanation of what she's trying to say. And this is important because science backs us up. The brain does not pay attention to boring things. However, by using videos and pictures, your brain sort of processes this information better, but recalls it better. So they say if you hear information, you're likely to remember about 10% of that 3 days later. If you add a picture, your recall rate will soar to about 65%. So to put that into context, a picture will help you remember 6 times more information than listening to words alone. So on that, she spot on, she gets it. Now, her voice. Jaya mentioned how she lowered her voice to sort of have this commanding presence. Initially, I thought, okay, she seemed really disinterested. But then I realized it was part of her presentation. She was showing the disdain sort of for wazungus, for charity porn, for those things that, you know, you think we need you, but I will show you just how we are. And I think her voice sort of showed that she didn't need the Western approval. So I thought that was good. And then she did her Twitter message. She had one succinct, short thing that she was trying to say, which is it's not about charity, it's about charity. It's about sharing the opportunities, the idea that Africans can compete in the global market and it can be on an equal sort of playing field, that it need not be in balance as it has been. So I thought that was interesting. And I think, you know, it gave me food for thought. I don't know if it was my most favorite, but it gave me food for thought. So on a day where we had a winning headline from The Star and a winning cartoon from The Star, I want to leave you with this. in the end, Malens, in her talk, is asking us to, change the channel, change our perspective. She's asking us to own our visions of a brighter world. She's saying, never see lack, never see abundance, always see abundance everywhere, and watch the universe conspire to give you the things that you want, yeah? So she says, don't focus on your problems, but on your solutions, and that your perception of any given situation is the only thing that will determine your outcome. So if you see good, there will be good.
Absolutely.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also find us on TV. We're on GoTV, Pan Free to Air, and Star Times.